Welcome to all of you. I'm David Elwood. I'm the Dean of the Kennedy School, and I'm just absolutely thrilled and honored that we have the chance to have this forum here today. Let me start with one bit of business. Any of you that have cell phones, would you please turn them off so as not to interrupt the proceedings and so on. Today we are honored to have a very distinguished guest deliver the 2004 Albert H. Gordon Lecture. Mr. Gordon is a longtime friend of the Kennedy School and has been a great partner in bringing world leaders to our campus. Mr. Gordon is not able to be with us today, but his friends Mel and Mary Jo Rhines are representing him here today, and so we want to thank Mr. Gordon and the Rhines. I also want to acknowledge the efforts of Greg Carr. As many of you know, he's a graduate of the school in 1986. He's also the chairman of the Carr Foundation and founder of the Carr Center here at the School for Human Rights. He's been instrumental in bringing today's speaker with us and currently is working with him on a major project to restore a national park in Mozambique. So let me now turn to our speaker. Over the years, we've heard from a variety of heads of state, senators, statesmen, authors, and academics from all over the world. Men and women dedicated to create more just, more civil, more prosperous societies. That dedication often clashes with an unforgiving world and with old ways of thinking. To take on the status quo, to fight for leadership, for new ideas, to provide is a real test of courage. And our speaker today has been measured and tested in a wide variety of different ways, and we are now very, very proud to have him with us. As a young student, he engaged in underground activities in Mozambique, Portugal, and France as he sought independence. He studied at Lisbon University, but due to his commitment to the nationalist movement in Mozambique, he was forced to leave Portugal for France, where he attended university there. In 1962, he joined the Mozambique Liberation Front, Frelimo, and continued that struggle for freedom. When the Portuguese rule finally ended, he was Prime Minister of the Transitional Government from 1974 to 75. The Portuguese had pulled out virtually overnight, and Mozambique, lacking skilled professionals and infrastructure, was quickly thrown into near chaos. But he served as Foreign Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs from 1975 through 1986 under President Samora Machel, and he became deputy to the People's Assembly and member of the Standing Committee. It was during this time that he and his countrymen were severely tested again. A rebel force, partly funded by neighboring nations, fought to control and destabilize Mozambique. Then in 1986, after a plane crash that killed President Machel, he succeeded as president of Mozambique. He started a process at that point that resulted in remarkable change and growth in that country. In 1992, he signed the peace accord with the leaders of the Mozambique National Resistance, and it was a watershed moment for the country. Given the Marxist nature of his own movement, he took over. He then moved it, changed it, and took enormous courage to break away from some of the lessons of the past, and in doing so, transformed his nation. After the winning of the presidency outright in Mozambique's first free elections in 1994, The Economist writes, Mozambique has done well for over a decade and can claim that this is a result of much better governance. He did it by appointing good ministers and technocrats and supported them against the politicians. At one point in the late 1990s, Mozambique was the fastest growing country in the world. Governance often requires compromise and new ways of thinking. He led an effort for trade and development in his nation and all over the southern cone of Africa. He was a founding member of the African Union and became its head. Our guest this evening has changed the way people think in Mozambique and in turn the way in which people think about the industrialized world and the lending institutions of Africa. Talking with him at lunch, we talked about everything from fighting poverty, building literacy, preserving the environment, changing democracy. He recently negotiated a bilateral debt forgiveness plan with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula. And when the agreement, he got an agreement to forgive 95% of Mozambican debt. And he said, our guest, I think this could serve as an example for other countries similar in size to Brazil to make a gesture to the poor countries of the world that often have an essentially unpayable debt. This man's been a revolutionary. He's been a statesman. He's been a Democrat. He's been a fighter. Through all this time, he has kept the meaning of and the notion of what's best for his people in the forefront at all times. And now he's done something that also requires extraordinary courage. He announced some time ago that he would not be standing for re-election, and soon there will be elections, free elections in Mozambique to select his successor. This doesn't mean our speaker is going to go quietly into the night. Quite the contrary. He wants to start a new foundation to focus on peace and development and culture in his country and throughout Africa. And so he leaves his country at a time now where it's moving rapidly forward, where democracy has taken hold, where stability has been present for nearly a decade. He took on serious challenges in battle and in the election booth, and now he'll face new ones. I now want to just turn us all to this remarkable man, the president of the country of Mozambique, President Joaquim Chissano.
Dr. David Elwood, Dean of the Kennedy School of Government, distinguished faculty, dear students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I feel greatly honored and privileged to have merited the invitation to come and speak at this prestigious institution of higher learning. The Harvard University is respected internationally, not only as a center of excellence in higher education, but also for its remarkable contributions to science and technology with great impact to society. My pleasure and honor are greatly enhanced by the fact that it was here at this university that a great son of Mozambique, and indeed of Africa, in 1960 produced a research paper for his PhD degree in anthropology under the supervision of the late Professor Gordon Allport, then head of the Department of Social Relations. I'm talking about Dr. Eduardo Shivambu Mondlane, the founder and first president of the Mozambique Liberation Front, Frelimo, in 1962. Frelimo led the struggle for the liberation of Mozambique against the Portuguese colonialism, and the country became independent in 1975. The work of Dr. Eduardo Mondlane helped to change the political future of Africa by contributing to the vision that colonialism was not invincible. During our struggle for independence, I had the privilege of working very closely with Dr. Mondlane until his assassination in Dar es Salaam in February 1969. What I have learned with President Mondlane has had an important bearing on my education and performance as a leader of Mozambique. Mondlane was indeed my political mentor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to discuss the challenges of resolving conflicts and developing Africa with such a distinguished audience. I am humbled by your interest in my country and Africa. Let me begin by stating with strong conviction that Africa is winning the battle to resolve violent conflicts in the continent. A new dawn was set by African leaders when in 1999 they decided to consider that year and subsequent years as years of conflict resolution and restoration of peace. Since then, the search for peaceful solutions to conflicts became top priority, and the results are indeed encouraging. In 1999, there were 19 violent conflicts in Africa. Today, we face serious challenges only in 5 countries, namely the Sudan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Somalia, Burundi, and Cote d'Ivoire. The other 2 are the interstate conflicts between Morocco and the Sahrawi Democratic Republic, and between Ethiopia and Eritrea, in which at the moment violence is in a pause. Let us hope that this pause be for good. I thought it would be more useful to discuss what I consider to be the root causes and the main factors generating conflicts in the first instance. Then I will share with you my thoughts on how to prevent, manage, and resolve conflicts, as well as on strategies, plans, and programs to preserve peace and develop the continent. Let me start by the factors and causes of conflicts in Africa. The structural roots of conflicts in Africa are diverse and complex, and they correspond to geostrategic, historical, development conditions and stages, differing post-independence political systems and forms of internal and external interaction. Without attempting to categorize the various conflicts in Africa, one could typify them on the basis of their nature. A. Conflicts for resources, in which parties fight for access to economic power and access to or control of natural resources. B. Ideological conflicts based on political rivalries and value systems. C. Conflicts of identity translated into ethnic, religious, and other rivalries for access to political and economic power and social justice. D. Border conflicts based on territorial claims. A common feature in all types of conflicts is, in essence, the state of poverty in which groups are and the consequent sense of perception of political, economic, and social exclusion. This is compounded by the fact that in most African countries, the state is the main employer, which exacerbates the fight for access to that form of employment. Another equally salient factor is that in some countries, the political parties are formed on the basis of ethnic and regional identities. In some extreme cases, community elites create the perception that the survival and security of the ethnic, regional, or religious group depends upon their control of political power. Here, I should mention that Mozambique managed to build a sense of Mozambican identity thanks to the far-sighted vision of our nationalist leader, Dr. Eduardo Mondlane. He taught us to distinguish tribe from tribalism. A tribe enshrines values that, when added to those of other tribes, form and enriches our culture, while tribalism is a political attitude that seeks to divide for the sake of the interests of individuals or narrow-minded groups thus delaying the process of building a nation. Tribalism and ethnicity thrive in societies where there is extreme poverty. It is becoming evident in different parts of the world that where there is sustained economic growth and development, the potential for violence and conflict diminishes. Africa has experienced the devastating effects of external intervention through proxy wars led by the superpowers during the Cold War era. Africans were instrumentalized to fight Africans at the service of interests alien to their own peoples. While we can say that that period is over, the interest in accessing Africa's natural resources has given rise to new forms of intervention and interference. This has fueled internal wars and corruption in African communities, thus weakening state institutions. Except for the Morocco-Sahrawi Democratic Republic and the Ethiopia-Eritrea territorial conflicts, today's conflicts are mostly intra-state, albeit their regional impact. This means that in all other cases, the conflict is staged within the boundaries of a given state, which dictates a certain way of dealing with the parties and relevant actors. Let us look at the challenge of resolving conflicts in Africa. A structured search for solutions to conflicts in Africa began when African countries and national liberation movements assumed that a collective effort was needed, and they established concrete mechanisms to address not only the conflicts themselves, but their root causes as well. At that time, the main conflict was between the African peoples and colonialism. The Organization of the African Unity was undoubtedly an important step in that direction. Established in 1963 by independent African countries and liberation movements, it affirmed the determination to contribute to the liberation of the entire continent from the colonial yoke. This came out of the realization that Africans shared the same destiny, and as such, they needed to unite and act collectively. They found strength in unity, and they embraced a common purpose. Indeed, they were proven right as all countries of Africa gained independence and the minority regimes of apartheid and of southern Rhodesia were defeated. In order to prevent territorial disputes, the founding fathers of the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, included a provision in the charter that established the validity of the colonial boundaries for the new independent nations of Africa. Except for a few cases, this provision has been accepted and respected. In subsequent years, the OAU promoted peace and unity among member states, stimulating dialogue and the peaceful settlement of disputes. Despite the fact that in the past, the intervention of the OAU was not of military nature, we recognize, however, its merit in the search for lasting solutions for conflicts in the continent. In this regard, we recall conflicts opposing states such as Somalia and Kenya, as well as Morocco, Mauritania, and Western Sahara, and also Somalia and Ethiopia. All of them erupted because of territorial disputes. We also recall the internal strife in Nigeria, which affected the Biafra state as a result of a combination of religious and ethnic differences. The OAU played a crucial role in the search of long-lasting solutions in all these conflicts. Accordingly, we witnessed the participation of the OAU in the most complex conflict situations, which involved simultaneously foreign and national forces, such as the case in Angola and Mozambique. The rule then was a complete non-interference in other states' internal affairs and non-military intervention. At the OAU summit in Algiers, we adopted the historic decision not to accept within the organization regimes that come to power through military coups. What was then fashionable, to use force to take over power when differing with those in power, became rare since then. We do not recognize, as representatives of their states within the organization, governments issued from the use of force or any other unconstitutional methods. The major turning point, however, came with the launching of the African Union, AU. So, for those who are not accustomed to pay attention, this sounds similar. OAU and now AU. So I was saying that the major turning point, however, came with the launching of the African Union, AU, in 2002 in Durban, South Africa. The Constitutive Act of the Union attested to the new determination of African leaders to take charge of the destinies of their countries and peoples by doing things differently. The Constitutive Act, among other important provisions, established the right of the Union to intervene in a member state in cases where there are massacres, genocide, and crimes against humanity. All AU member states adhered to this innovative principle. Therefore, no African state can hide behind national sovereignty and non-interference to oppress and commit genocide against its own people. Another fundamental shift in the way Africans dealt with conflicts is the establishment of the Peace and Security Council, envisaged in the Constitutive Act. This is a democratic and representative organ of the African Union, composed of 15 members with equal voting powers, charged with the task of promoting and maintaining peace and security in the continent. Mozambique is a member of this council. The council was launched on the 25th of May this year at a summit meeting of its members. Instead of simply holding a launching ceremony, the leaders decided on that first day to discuss the urgent issues of the conflicts in the Sudan, particularly looking at the situation in Darfur, the conflicts in Somalia and Côte d'Ivoire. It was at that meeting that we decided to dispatch the initial mission of military observers as well as its protection force to Darfur. Africa's leadership in the search for a solution to these conflicts is evident. The Peace and Security Council is actively seized of this matter. The African Union current chairman, President Obasanjo of Nigeria, is at present actively engaged and leading the negotiations between the parties to the conflict. They had to interrupt this, unfortunately, before reaching a positive conclusion, but I'm sure that this will be continued. The experience of Africa's direct involvement in conflict prevention, management, and resolution has been positive thus far. The first African Union experience in peacekeeping operations with an African force was the deployment in Burundi of 2,700 strong mission comprising troops from South Africa, Ethiopia, and Mozambique. This mission has shown that Africa has the political will to respond to crises within the continent. Africa can, step by step, build the capability for this purpose. The complex internal conflict in the DRC was assuming alarming proportions and threatening to derail the delicate peace process underway. With the involvement of regional leaders and the African Union working in collaboration with the United Nations, the process was brought back on track, and the transitional government of national unity has resumed its functioning. We continue to follow developments, and we are in constant contact with the leading actors in DRC. In order to strengthen the African Union capability to act, we have adopted the African Common Defense Policy, and we have decided to establish a standby force composed of 5 regional brigades. The policy envisages early warning systems because we believe that greater investment should be placed into prevention. Conflict prevention is the most cost-effective way of resolving conflicts. However, the best tool to conflict prevention is development. I would like, therefore, to discuss this challenge, the challenge of developing Africa. A paradigm shift was conceived by African leaders when they adopted the new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD. NEPAD is the African Union's programmatic vision, which seeks to guide the collective action of African nations to combat poverty and generate balanced and sustainable development of Africa. NEPAD is a partnership within and among African nations in the first instance, and of Africa with its partners in the international community. NEPAD is based on an agenda established by the African peoples through their own initiatives. In the NEPAD, African leaders assume a collective responsibility. A, to strengthen the mechanisms for prevention and management and resolution of conflicts. B, to promote and protect democracy and human rights through the definition of standards, responsibilities, transparency, and participation in governance. C, to restore and maintain macroeconomic stability, especially through the definition of standards and targets for fiscal and monetary policies, as well as the establishment of institutional frameworks. D, to adopt transparent, legal, and regulatory financial frameworks and good auditing practices. E, to revitalize and extend the provision of education and technical training, as well as providing health services with special emphasis on the eradication of HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and other endemic diseases. F, to promote the role of women in social and economic development through capacity building and greater opportunity of participation. G, to build the state's capability to maintain law and order. H, to promote the development of infrastructure, agriculture, including the diversification in agricultural industries and manufacturing for internal and external markets. NEPAD seeks to give a new impetus to African countries through good political, economic, and corporate governance. The implementation of NEPAD deliberations has the oversight of a 20-member implementation committee composed of heads of state and government, including from Mozambique. This is a distinguishing feature of NEPAD because it has 20 leaders meeting regularly to evaluate progress and give guidance to the steering committee and the secretariat. We are now at the process of looking at projects to be funded within the framework of NEPAD. NEPAD has also a learning and cure mechanism that we chose to call the African Peer Review Mechanism. The APRM is a voluntary mechanism to which African countries adhere to and accept to be reviewed in their political, economic, and corporate governance on the basis of agreed criteria, norms, and standards. A panel of wise women and men has been established and begun its work. Mozambique is up for review before the end of this year. We want to be corrected on our mistakes and to learn from our peers the best practices and critical success factors. By understanding its objectives, it becomes clear that the African Peer Review Mechanism is an excellent tool for conflict prevention, institutional capacity building, and to sustain development. We are happy to note that NEPAD has earned the respect of our partners and other parts of the international community as an excellent framework for cooperation and partnership with Africa. We cherish our partnership with the United Nations, the G8, the European Union, the Nordic countries, China, India, among others. We would very much like to see Harvard University as a partner of Africa in NEPAD, providing the required knowledge base that is so vital for the success of this vision. It is often said that the beauty of knowledge is that you can give it without losing it. In the process, you actually acquire more knowledge. As you can see, the challenge of resolving conflicts and promoting development in Africa is a daunting task, but the prospects are equally good and well within the limits of the means we have at our disposal. The birth of the African Union and its vision, NEPAD, offers a valuable window of opportunity for Africa and its partners to work together towards the African Renaissance. We often say to our partners that to work together towards this end is not simply a moral imperative. It is an investment to a future of global peace and stability and of harmonious development. I would like to repeat here what I said elsewhere. No island of prosperity will be sustainable over time if surrounded by a sea of misery and deprivation. Africa is endowed with immense human and natural resources that can be developed to benefit African peoples and the world. Beyond the Millennium Development Goals, we can work with Africa to build a strong and prosperous continent that can give a significant contribution to humanity. I would like to invite the faculty and students to take up the challenge of studying the African Union and NEPAD so as to offer advice and inputs that will ensure success towards a continent without a conflict, a continent which contributes for world peace. I would also like to invite you to visit Mozambique to see firsthand the efforts we are making to contribute in building a new Africa. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Chissano, and thank you for the challenge to us here at Harvard, as well as to the world and what lies ahead. Well, now we're going to open the floor up for questions. There are microphones at 4 places, one here, one up there, and one up there. And I'd just like to remind you of a couple things. First of all, I'd like you to identify yourself when you ask a question. Second of all, the very best questions have 2 characteristics. They are short and they end with a question mark. So with that, let me open the floor, and I see someone up here. Do you see a person standing right
Yes.
here?
My name is Alan Rosenstein. Mr. President, do you think the AU is doing enough to stop the state-supported genocide in Darfur?
Yeah, I suppose that I have understood your question is whether the OU has done enough to
Stop the state-supported genocide in the Darfur.
do away with that. Okay. I would not say that the African Union has done enough, but it is doing what it can do. Are you happy? Okay. Now, maybe I would add something. But your question has been answered, but I will add something, is that this is the second or the third case where we are taking a prompt action. With our meager means. As I said in my presentation, at the first meeting of the council, we took to it that we should be present on the ground to understand what was going on instead of speculating from afar. And we immediately concerted our action with the United Nations and other partners. We took initiatives at a regional basis as this question in Darfur is connected with the situation in the Central African region. And the chairman of the Central Africa and the president of Chad, they started the contacts with the parties in the Sudan. And the chairman of the African Union Commission went to Chad and to Darfur and into Congo, where the chairman of the Central Africa is. And myself, when I was chairman of the African Union, I dispatched a mission to Chad so that we know what to do, because the Chad was close to the situation. So a lot of missions were undertaken in order to come to rescue the people in Darfur. But the decision taken at the first meeting of the council was very important, because we sent observer team of military people from different countries, including Mozambique. And we decided that we should send a force of protection of this observers team in order to serve as a deterrent so that no more atrocity were committed. Now, the difference in action between the African Union and some other parts of the world is that the African Union works to try and find a solution and to have the parties to stop violence and come together and find a lasting solution. Then other things will come to see who is guilty, who is not guilty. There was genocide, where it's not genocide. Is it is a massacre? What is this? What is important now is to stop violence. Whatever shape the violence takes, what we need is to stop violence. So we are working for that. Of course, as I said, we are against genocide, we are against massacre, we have against the crimes against humanity. We will deal with that, but first is to stop the fight. It's like when you see two children fighting on the street. You don't go there and start asking who started this, who is guilty, who has beaten more, and so forth. You have to go there, separate them, and even if possible, make them shake hands and agree to sit down and talk, and then you proceed. Later you'll find who was guilty there. They will say, forgive me, let us heal the wounds this way or that way. So this is our approach, which is different from many countries whom I know in the world.
Okay, thank you. Up here. Mr. President, right up here.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Derek Lewis. I'm from the Harvard Business School. To what extent are you encouraging or emphasizing foreign direct investment to help develop Mozambique? And secondly, in that light, are you implementing any policies to ensure that the benefits of something like that to create corporations and that type of thing are being kept inside the country as opposed to just being extracted and the wealth going outside Mozambique?
May you help me?
Yes.
Because sometimes I don't get the pronunciation very well.
The question is, what is being done? Are you in favor in promoting outside investment in Mozambique? And what is being done to ensure when outside investors come in that many of the benefits remain with the people of Mozambique? Is that a fair restatement?
Okay.
Yes.
Well, to promote investment, we have created a number of incentives and a number of securities which make people feel that in Mozambique there's an investment environment. And we have been getting good responses. And the first investors to come are serving as examples to attract others. Actually, nowadays are the successful investors in Mozambique who speak a lot about us, and sometimes I may say for us, like the case of Mozal aluminium plant, and now Sasol, and the others. Now, for the benefit of Mozambique, we are, first of all, urging all those who invest in Mozambique to care about the social environment in which their business is being run. Let me take the example of Mozal again. It's an aluminium plant, a big one, which has a multiplying effects around its region where it operates. They are involved, for instance, in the combat against malaria, which comprises a region composed of 3 territories of Swaziland, Mozambique, and South Africa. There are small businessmen who are undertaking some activities which are required by Mozal. They subcontract local companies. Well, that example which I could give is of Sasol. When they were building the pipeline, we talked to them so that they gave part of the business to the Mozambicans. And so the pipes were transported by Mozambican companies and not by the South African companies. It was to a distance of about 800 kilometers. And so people made some money. And in the site where Sasol has built the purification plant for the gas, schools have emerged, clinics have emerged, things like that. But also we encourage partnerships with Mozambicans. And because we are creating this small group of capitalists in Mozambique, where we don't have them. Our capitalists have been all foreigners, but now we are busy creating capitalists. Actually, we started this even in the time when people were afraid of us because we're Marxists and whatnot, but we did not forget that we needed to have some capitalists in the country, but they should be Mozambicans, and we didn't have them. Even a shopkeeper was a Portuguese or an Indian. Today we're having them. So we encourage the companies which come from outside to enter into partnership with these Mozambicans. So we are now, through education, trying to teach people how to manage businesses, how to have new skills to establish businesses, and so on. We have a lot of agriculture in Mozambique, and so investments also may mean to bring extension works so that instead of opening big farms, the investor can buy the products from the peasants. So you have the product that's being produced by the peasants. For the oil, for instance, the sunflower is being produced not by big farmers, but by the peasants. And the oil factories are there, and you have workers. The workers are Mozambicans. So part of the money which is generating may stay there. Yeah. And we encourage the foreigners to reinvest part of their profits. We don't force them. Thank you.
Right over here. Speak slowly, please.
President Chissano, thank you for being here. My name is Tiziana Deering. I'm the Executive Director of the Hauser Center for Nonprofit Organizations here at Harvard. I'd be interested in hearing a little more from you on what you think the appropriate role for international non-governmental organizations is in promoting either conflict resolution or development on the African continent.
Yeah, the role of non-governmental organization is very important. We in Mozambique have worked with the non-governmental organizations since the time we were fighting for independence. We promoted some of these organizations, such as is the case in the United States, but also in many parts of Europe. And we thought that the good non-governmental organizations are those who come and put their activity in harmony with the policies of the country where they work, so that they really come there to serve the interests of the people there. But some of these organizations commit a mistake of coming there as messiahs who come there and to bring the leverage and to the poor people and so forth. And so they come there and they start preaching, and sometimes they can create controversies. They can try to lead the policies of the country. So those NGOs, they can create conflict instead of helping to solve conflicts. The good NGOs create such harmony in the communities where they work. They identify themselves with these communities. They identify themselves with the policies of the government. Even if they don't agree with the policies, they find a way of having a sound dialogue so that they can bring in changes, and they can influence but in a very peaceful manner. So they can that way contribute to for the solution of conflicts. As I said, many of the conflicts are derived from the state of poverty. And if the NGOs work to do away with poverty, they are already contributing to end with the root causes of conflict. At the same time, they are working for development. We in Mozambique have created, institutionalized the dialogue between the government and the NGOs, so that whatever the NGOs do go in line with the plan of development. Well, of course, there are some who like to put some status on what they do. They do something and they want their name to be there, and so this is me who did it. And we are encouraging people to work within a program of the government, because they come there because it's the government who has got a plan, calling them to come and join. It's not good that when they come, they start saying, hey, they are the ones who did this, that the government did nothing. And so this creates a conflict between the people who are being served with the government, because the government doesn't do anything but that NGO which came from America is the savior. It's not correct. This is a source of conflict. So this is what we are having this permanent dialogue for, so that we move in the same direction. And this brings really quite a lot of dialogue. We do this for combat HIV, to combat poverty, and so on.
Thank you.
Right over here.
I'm Dharitri Patnaik from Kennedy School of Government. I would like to know what you think of the recently released Africa Vision 2050 and your role in nurturing the youth leadership in Africa to address issues in Africa.
2050. I hope that everybody knows what is this all about. She is speaking about an initiative of the youth of Southern Africa countries and East African countries, who decided to sit down and think what to be done, what kind of Africa we could have in 2050. They took the idea from the fact that now we are celebrating, let's say, 50 years of the independences of the countries of Africa. And therefore it's good to have the vision as Nkrumah had in 1957 or so, about a future Africa of Africa. Now they want to do this. I think that's a good thing, so that the youth can work with a vision, with a hope of what they're doing, because otherwise they run the risk of getting frustrated, because they would have a short-sighted views on the outcome of their work. If they work to gain tomorrow, and then they would feel frustrated. But if they see that what they have done may bear fruits only 50 years to come, maybe when they are no longer there, then if they see progress on what they are doing, they can become happy. We have seen many youth who get frustrated because they don't get the role of leadership, because they work for leadership but not for the fulfillment of the aspirations of the people. So this discussion about the future of Africa 15 years from now, it's very good for our youth, which will make them volunteer more to do things, because they have a vision.
Up here.
President Chissano, thank you for being here. My name is Bhakti Merchandani. I'm a student at Harvard Business School. You spoke of the importance of development to conflict prevention. What steps are you taking to develop financial services in Mozambique, and how is your government supporting microcredit?
Microcredit. Yeah.
Both microcredit and just development more generally. Question is, what are you doing to promote development and microcredit especially? Yes.
Yeah.
But financial services.
Yeah, okay. Well, in Mozambique, at independence, we had a few banks, and the banks were just the branches of banks which were elsewhere in the world, particularly in Portugal. So, at the beginning, we started by having only the state control on the banks. But later, we have decentralized and privatized in such a way that now the government doesn't have commercial banks, and the banks are private. The commercial banks, the government, the central bank has a role of normalization of the activity, and it works as a really an emissary bank, and tries to correct the fluctuations of the currency, and sets up the rules which must govern the banking system. The microcredit is something which we are encouraging. First, the different organizations, not necessarily the banks alone, but different organizations, including some organization of the civil society, to embark on the microcredit. Our first experience is being successful, and are mostly women who are benefiting from that experiment, and it's being very much successful. What we see is that the returns are good from the microcredit more than from the big credits. And so it's a good thing, and they have a good effect in uplifting the living conditions of the people, but also for the development programs, mainly in the countryside, but also in the towns for the women who had very difficult conditions of living. And some NGOs are helping to manage the microcredits. Well, I don't know what more I can say.
Mm-hmm.
But
Thank you.
Right up here.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Eidman. I'm a junior at the college. In your remarks, you mentioned how the OAU chose to continue reaffirming and maintaining the largely arbitrary borders that remain from colonialism. I was wondering whether, in light of intrastate conflicts, such as is in the DRC, you think that policy should remain, and whether you think that realistically it could change within the AU and the international community.
yeah, actually, in the example which you chose is not so good, because in DRC we don't have border disputes.
But the state itself has trouble controlling the entire territory because it's so large and diverse.
Yeah, but Yeah, but what we mean is not that. Again, it's not that. What we mean is that no country is allowed to claim parts of the DRC, for instance. The DRC has got boundaries with many countries like Chad, like Zambia, Angola, the other Congo, and so on. No one of these countries should claim parts of the DRC or DRC to claim parts of those other countries, like Rwanda or Uganda should not claim any area of the DRC. Now, what you are saying is that, well, the country is big, they could internally see what is the best organization they can put forward in order to better administer their country. This is something which they have to discuss internally. And I don't see anything wrong of having a big country like this. Brazil is so big, and the United States of America is so big. We don't want any one of the states of the United States of America to become Mozambique. One day it may come when we'll be one world, one country and one people in the world. Let us dream about that. In Africa, we are dreaming, we are moving towards that, but it will be difficult to think about all continents to become one country. But DRC may find solutions. I will not rush to say that they should become a federation like the United States of America. But if they can just be united, they can decentralize their administration, as we are doing in Mozambique. We're not so big country, but we are big enough. We have provinces, and we decentralize wherever we can for certain activities and so on, so that we'll be able to manage the country. So this is what we mean about not respecting the boundaries left by colonialism. Why did we take this decision? It's because the boundaries which were drawn up by colonialism were arbitrary boundaries, which divided very often tribes or ethnies, the same ethnies, or even families. So the tendency would be to say, well, that part of this group of ethnies is belongs to one country or another, and this would create a conflict, an endless conflict. So what we are saying is that let us respect these boundaries and work towards unity of Africa, and we'll come closer. Actually, we are discussing about opening the boundaries for free movement of persons and goods and so on. We are speaking about the integration of Africa, economic integration of Africa. We will integrate our cultures, because we recognize that we have almost the same cultures in Africa across the borders, but we will not limit the identity of cultures of the same ethnies, but will interpenetrate and create an African culture. Thank you.
Going to be able to just take two more questions. This one right here.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosalind Shaw. I'm a fellow at the Carr Center for Human Rights Policy here, and I'm also an associate professor of anthropology at Tufts University. Mozambique's been an extraordinary example of post-conflict reconstruction, post-conflict recovery, especially after a civil war that entered into the smallest community. And at the time, a truth commission was rejected, and I think a war crimes tribunal was also not considered.
What was rejected?
A truth commission.
Ah, yeah.
In retrospect, given that now truth commissions are considered part of a toolkit for increasingly for post-conflict situations, do you still believe that decision was correct?
Yes. Yeah, no, you wanted to put another question, why? Yeah, But you're not yet furious with her because you had only one question. And now she's putting two. I'm willing to answer the second one. No, in our country, what we followed a procedure to bring a conflict to an end. And we did it successfully. So, subsequent to that, people started thinking about bringing in a truth commission. And we were putting the same question as you put. Why bring a truth commission? We have solved successfully a conflict. And we have given guarantees to each other, all the parties. And what we said, let us put what is history to be history. And now let us open the page and forge ahead. But people come and say, no, now let us go back to square one, to start another negotiation or what? So we think that it was correct, and the proof is there, is that we have 12 years now since we signed the agreement, and we are living in peace. And what we are doing is forge ahead to develop a culture of peace and to do away with all the hatreds. One thing which people many times don't understand is when we speak about reconciliation, what do we mean? Some have the tendency of thinking that it's reconciliation between the government and Renamo. In the case, Renamo was the rebel movement, now became a party. It was the guerrilla movement, now became a party. The reconciliation actually has got not much to do with government and Renamo. Renamo is composed of people. Tomorrow these people will not be there. The government is composed of people. Actually, when we signed the agreement, the composition of government was a different one, except the president is still there. Even the prime minister has changed, and so on and so on. Reconciliation is not about that. Reconciliation is about reconciliation within the society, where you had a war which killed. I would not go and ask someone who lost his father. He killed his father, and he lost his father. And say, now let us go to the Truth Commission for what? If he's living with his mother, the mother has decided to forgive his son, he's living with him. We have cases like that in Mozambique. The reconciliation is within the society. And this is a reconciliation which was prepared before the talks themselves for peace. We had to go around the country and convince people that it was necessary to sit down and talk. And we had to tell people that if we signed a peace agreement, they should be ready to receive back their brothers who were lost. And if they come back now, people want us to start putting questions. It's true that, maybe from the government forces also, people went on and shooting, and when they shot, they might have killed innocent people also there. But now it's not time to come back and say which gun has shot. People have died. Those who shot these bullets have died. And the commander was not even there. He was in Maputo, and the battle took place in Niassa. You are going to judge these people, and the commander is not there, or you judge the commander and these people are no longer there, and you dig all this past. If we had no solution, we said, well, this should be the solution, then we would have gone to that way. Those people who are talking like this are people who have the tendency of copying anything. And they saw that when South Africa there was a truth commission, they said, let us go there and we copy what the South Africans were doing. Some did the same when de Klerk and Mandela were running a government jointly. They were saying, Chissano, you have to do the same thing. You know, the answer I gave them is that, look, their house was made of glass. The glass was broken, and they could glue the glass with a glue, but I don't have that same glue, and my house is not made out of glass. Maybe it's broken also, but my house is roofed by zinc. Is it the same glue? I will not going to use it. And they can manage a situation that way. But I had to learn how to manage the situation in my country, which the situation are not similar. If I had a truth commission, I had to foresee what would be the outcome. But the outcome which we wanted was peace, and peace is there, and it's staying. Now the problems are how we maintain this peace forever, and this is what we are interested in. And this we agreed. And actually this was the slogan of the very negotiations in Rome during 2 years, to put aside what divides us and promote what can unite us. And this we are going to follow.
President's on a tight schedule, so this will have to be the last question, and I hope you can keep it short.
Thank you. My name is Paula Aguilera Williams. I'm at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. President Chissano, it's a great honor to have a chance to talk to you today. I lived in Mozambique for 10 years, and everybody should go. It's a beautiful country, and it's a great honor to talk to you. Real quickly, I wanted to ask you, as you prepare to leave government, what are perhaps some of your accomplishments, of which there are many, that you are the most proud of, and what are perhaps some of the disappointments? Kanimambo.
Are you American?
No.
No, you are?
Chilena.
Chilena. One of the accomplishments is to have a Chilena to speak in my own language.
Kanimambo, Presidente.
She said Kanimambo, which means thank you. In my language, my native language. Well, of course, it's obvious. The best accomplishment in my presidency is the achievement of peace. That was the biggest achievement. But of course, then others come, they follow. The change of a system of government linked with the reforms in the process of economic development, with the results which we know, which now are bearing fruit in the sense that, because we speak about economic growth alone, it may not give us the correct dimension of the success, is that this economic growth has brought now together with it the social growth, the social development, and the human development. The rates of growth in human development are small, very small, but they are a big change in the life of the people. And so I am proud, but also is that I feel that the young generation is capable of doing lots of things now. We are moving fast into the new technologies, ICTs. I can't believe that I could not believe some years ago that we would be where we are today. We are being cited today as a country in progress in this field. And this means that in spite of the difficulties we are living in, we are still among the poorest countries of the world. We are in pace with the new technologies, and we may go very, very far, and will in very few years to come. Thank you.
Mr. President, thanks again for doing us the honor of being here. You've shown that knowledge is not the only thing that can be given without being lost. So can vision and friendship. Thank you for your inspiration, and thank you for teaching us that leadership also involves learning. Thank you again.